Hey there, it's Brian, the creator of Smart Connections, the Obsidian plugin that was the first to implement AI embeddings with your notes. I had to make this plugin for myself because, if you can relate, I was somebody who would be going through my folders of notes and documents, and someone that just discovered that they wrote a 20-page document on something that's really important to them, and somehow it just left my mind. So, learning about AI embeddings made me realize that there was a better solution. And now, almost a 500,000 Obsidian users have downloaded Smart Connections. So, to start, I'm going to show you just how easy it is to get started with Smart Connections, and then we'll explore some other smart plugins that I've been working on in building out what I'm calling the smart ecosystem. One last thing before we get started. It's important that you know why this matters to me. I believe that empowering individuals with AI is one of the most important things we can focus on now that we've reached this era of AI. And furthermore, I started using Obsidian not only because it's a great piece of software, but also because the mission behind Obsidian is user aligned. So these experiences in building smart connections and developing more for the individuals that utilize smart connections to help them realize their goals has brought me to this point where I see a future that you can help me develop plugins that help us. I hope that what you see here today shows you the future, or at least a glimpse of how I see this working out and becoming something that we can create together. Okay, so in Obsidian, you're probably already familiar with installing a plugin. Just search Smart Connections and install. And we enable Smart Connections. And from here, if we go to the settings, we'll see that it's loading. And when you first load Smart Connections, it imports your notes and processes them using a local embedding model. What that means is that you get the power of AI embeddings without any of your notes leaving your computer. And for many Obsidian users like myself, privacy is an important part of why they use Obsidian, opposed to uploading all of your personal thoughts and notes to a cloud, whether it's Google Drive or some other service. Obsidian allows you to own your notes in a local file that can be explored by almost any piece of software, since the files are simply text. So it looks like our embeddings finished. So when we click the settings again, we see our settings, and if we clear these notifications, we can see that there are some settings for configuring the connections view, but we can just go and see what the connections view looks like without doing anything. There's this little open smart view or open smart connections button on the left, and that opens this tab on the right. And if we go and open a note, so I just noticed that the connections were not loading, so I went into the settings and I clicked this clear sources data button, and then I clicked reload sources. Now you can see we are embedding 10 times as many notes. For some reason, the blocks did not embed the first time I started the plugin. This could be because I recently deleted the data and there was something left over when I was trying to start from scratch. But this time, we're embedding all 2,900 pieces of content. That includes all few hundred notes plus pieces of those notes, which allow us to see our connections at a more granular level. Okay, so now When we go back to our note and we hit the refresh button in the connections pane, we will see that we have a bunch of different notes here. A lot of them look to be coming from the same note, and that's because of those blocks. If we open this up, we'll see that these are different sections of the same note. And if we go to the left-hand side and change notes, we'll see that new content appeared in the connections pane, and we can keep clicking through notes from there. That's how easy it is to get started with smart connections. You can start seeing what AI thinks is similar to your current note by just installing the plugin. No installing external software like Olama. It just works out of the box. So that is Smart Connections. Let's take a look at Smart Connect. Smart Connect is a piece of software that I developed so that ChatGPT can interact directly with your Obsidian Vault without having to upload and copy and maintain syncing of all your content to some place on the cloud or even some server. This app essentially opens up a tunnel between ChatGPT and your computer when you are running the software. Let's set this up. We create a new environment, and we're going to want to name the environment the same as what our vault's name is. So in this case, it's Smart Vault. Down on the left, you can see in the Obsidian. And then we are going to configure the folder. And the folder is already selected, so I could just say select. And one last thing is we want to sign in to the Smart Connections official service. I already have my information here, but this is my email and my connection key. When you sign up for the service, you will get a connection key via email. There are other ways where you can connect without using the official service, but that's going to be out of the scope of this video right here. In this case, we're assuming that you are participating in the Smart Connect official service, and we're going to hit start. And when you start the smart environment in Smart Connect for the first time, it's going to add a few essential plugins to the Obsidian. So we can go restart our Obsidian, and after restarting, we'll see those plugins in the community plugin section. We have the Smart Connect plugin, which handles some important connection related requests over the Obsidian protocol. And we also added the Smart Editor plugin, which allows you to see any changes that the AI makes to your notes without there being any changes to the file. So this way, if you're somebody like me who is someone who actually never copied and pasted anything into my Obsidian, I always had this rule of it had to be my own words in my notes. So the content that gets put in there in my Obsidian is like, it needs to be very well curated. So having a way to review changes that AI makes before it actually makes them to those files was something that was really important for me to better leverage AI in my Obsidian. And lastly, we have the Smart Plugins plugin. This is a plugin that gives you access to other plugins that I'm either developing in an experimental stage, things that I think are, might be helpful to my workflows. So I, produce a plugin and, maybe it's not ready for the mainstream. So only people that have access to the Smart Plugins plugin, which comes with the Smart Connect app, have access to these various experimental and early release plugins. An early release plugin, for example, would be the Smart Connections early release plugin, which allows you to see your connections at the bottom of the note instead of only on the side. Just to see how quick and easy that is, we can just log in, which is the same as when we're logging in I'm turning off web viewer here so that when we log in, we have our credentials saved in Chrome. Okay, so we logged in and we can find the Smart Connections early release inside of here and install that. And in the settings, we just have to wait for the smart environment to reload. But in the settings, we'll see we have this footer connection setting. And now when we go back to our note, we can see our connections in the bottom here rather than on the side. Okay, so that's an example of an early release feature. Let's go back to Smart Connect. And in our smart environment window, let's create a new GPT to test out some of these features. So I just hit new group, which is custom GPT. This is an action group. A GPT essentially is a group of actions that you can configure to perform different tasks. So in this specific example, let's add the retrieve action so we can retrieve our notes. Let's add the draft change. Let's add draft move. And also let's list folders. Now, once we add those actions, we can go to this auto create custom GPT. And this will save us a few minutes by inputting all of the necessary fields into the custom GPT in our ChatGPT account. And when it's finished, we should see the URL appear where it says GPT URL and it's currently blank. We'll just help it along there by clicking the save button. And if it doesn't automatically appear here, we can just copy that link and paste it. Okay, now what we can do is we can open ChatGPT in the sidebar. This sidebar ChatGPT, it comes with the Smart Connections plugin. And we can find our custom 0 GPT. And all from it within Obsidian, we can update the GPT. I happen to prepare some custom instructions to help this demo. We can go Smart Vault Demo. Whoa. Let's try that again. I don't know why this Smart Vault Demo. Okay. And Smart Vault Demo. And we can disable these extra capabilities for now to keep things focused. Okay. So what can we do with this GPT, this custom GPT we just made with some actions from Smart Connect? Can you help me organize the files in my inbox folder into other existing folders?
Yeah, I can help with that. Do you already know which folders you want to move things into? Or should I help you figure that out based on the content in each file?
Figure that out and move the files, please.
Smart Vault Demo wants to send some data to a website to finish your request. Please check the conversation history to allow.
Okay, this is something you have to say always allow. That should only happen once. And we can, inside of the smart environment, go to our open console log and see exactly what is being sent to our local environment from ChatGPT. And you can see we have this review move. notification popping up in Obsidian, and it would like to move our life purpose discovery note from the inbox to the purpose and passion folder under the meaningful life folder. That seems like a good move. Let's move it now. We have another one. Looks good. And we have a little bit of a hiccup with the move life story and personal narrative, but we'll just move that out for now. But so you can see the GPT will just move the files based on what it knows about your vault. Let's try something else. Review notes in my happiness and fulfillment folder and make improvements to the notes using drafts.
Looks like something went wrong while trying to open the happiness and fulfillment folder. The system didn't return the data I needed. Want me to try again and see if it works on the second go?
Get all of my folders so you can find the exact subfolder.
Nice. I've pulled in all your notes under happiness and fulfillment. There's a solid set here. Topics like joy, contentment, nature, creativity, service, relationships, and more. I'll go through each one and create drafts with improvements. Want me to focus on anything in particular, like simplifying language, adding reflection prompts, or improving flow and structure?
Improve a few lines within each note.
I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble responding right now. Please wait a bit and try again.
Continue. So even with the failure, we did have some. We have this draft. It wants to add this content, so we can approve. We got another draft. We can see that it wants to change this piece of content. We got another change here. And another one.
All right, I've made draft improvements for 3 of the notes so far. Connection with nature.
So that is how Smart Connect can directly connect with your Obsidian through ChatGPT. And this is while all still keeping your notes locally on your computer. Okay, let's see what else we have. I mentioned there's the Smart Plugins plugin, and that's how we installed the Smart Connections early release. Let's go back to the Smart Plugins plugin and install the Smart Chat for experimental access. This is the same Smart Chat that was inside of the Smart Connections plugin, except for I moved it into its own plugin to simplify the code in a way that I believe that developers will be able to take that code and see what I've done with the underlying smart environment and further extend and develop the overall smart ecosystem with their own ideas and their own features. So the new Smart Chat, when it's all installed, you'll see on the left you can differentiate it from the original Smart Chat because it has this little smiley face inside the chat box. So it's telling us we need to open our settings, and set up an API key. We'll use OpenAI's latest nano model. I have my API key saved right here. Okay. We'll paste that in there. We can hit refresh models, and we have GPT-4o Mini, which is a perfectly fine model for a lot of what you're going to be doing in Obsidian, but since they just released 4.1 Mini, we'll go with that. Now that we have set up our API key, we can use the smart chat. You know, we can make sure they're there. Say hello. And using a question like who am I, which contains a self-referential pronoun, we can trigger a lookup of the notes inside of our vault. These, based on my question who am I, these are the notes that were found, and because I have this setting, review context, toggled on, before the AI responds, it's showing me the context which it's going to use to respond. So I can either send this now, or I can edit it, and I could add another note. So maybe I wanted to know about habit tracking. Maybe I wanted to know about, you know, SMART goals, and then you can see that those notes were added to the bottom here. And then I can click send, and we get that response from the GPT 4.1 mini model. Okay, what else can we do here? We can start a new chat and start dragging notes into the chat to use as context. What else can we do? Let's open up a note. We'll bring it over to the side here. And when we start a new chat, that note is already added to context. We have this history button here where we can look at past conversations. And there will be more features like this think button, which isn't going to make it into the main release. It's going to be an early release feature. But I have a lot of ideas and exciting things to integrate the smart chat with the overall smart environment, which provides smart actions and access to embeddings and the ability to edit notes. A lot of these features that are already somewhere in the smart environment will gain access through the smart chat. One last thing, you know, we can check out this edit system message. You know, maybe we want to say something like respond like a leprechaun. Whatever it is you want to, you know, custom control the current thread, you can add as a system message there, and it's just handled a little bit differently. You know, this way, maybe that's your thing, talking to leprechauns. Okay, let's move on to what else we have in the Smart Plugins plugin. We have the Smart Context Early Access. This is something that I use to quickly copy lots of context when I'm working on a project. So in my own primary vault, I keep notes for many different projects, and each of those projects has a context section where I link to other relevant notes. And using this early release version of the Smart Context plugin, I can actually also include external resources like code repositories inside of that note that will be copied to the clipboard when I say copy this note as context using the Smart Context plugin. Let's take a look at that. So I have this habit context note. It's a note which, if you're familiar with the concept of a map of content, it just links to a bunch of other notes. Like, this note's purpose is to pull together all of the relevant notes in this context. I can use my shortcut, which is Control-Shift-C, and what that looks like if we were going through the command palette, you can see Control-Shift-C here for copy current note to clipboard. That brings up this pick a link depth modal, and that allows you to choose, do I just want to copy this single this single note to clipboard, well, I could probably just hit Control A and Control C if I wanted to do that. But maybe I want to use this because the Smart Context plugin allows you to define wrappers for your context. So what you can see, I only copied this note, but you can see we have the file name of the note. Once again, it's a little repetitive here, but usually you're not copying a single note. And then it has the contents of the note wrapped in a code block that uses the file extension of this note. And if you go into the settings, this will all make sense. The Smart Context Early Access settings, you can see before the context, we have the file tree. And that's why you're seeing this here. And if you scroll down, you'll see we want the item path. This will say, like, what is this code block that comes next, where the code block is implemented with the file extension. And the file extension is important for me personally because I'm pulling in JavaScript files from code repositories, and I want it to label these pieces of context by the file name. It just helps the AI stay a little bit more aligned with your intentions. Now, let's see what happens if we copy link depth 1. So now you can see where this file tree starts to come in. It lays out what looks like a table of contents of the context. And then each of these links here have the code block wrapping the context. And as you can imagine, if you go to depth 2, it'll add even more links. We can see this time it copied 22,000 characters to the clipboard because it not only followed these links, but it followed the links within the content of those links. This is where I use this workflow. Let's go back to Smart Plugins and get Smart Chat GPT. Smart Chat GPT is a plugin I developed to help me bookmark ChatGPT threads to the project note that I'm currently working on. So if I'm working on, for example, the Smart Context plugin, I want to have all of the threads listed in one place so I don't have to go searching for these threads. Let's insert a ChatGPT code block, and I just used the command. If you see in the command palette here, insert ChatGPT code block. I keep it pinned to the top, and then you can see here, Smart ChatGPT in the code block syntax. Now, we have ChatGPT rendered here. We can say hello, and when the code block receives the URL of the new chat thread, you can see in the top right corner of that code block, it'll change from being not saved to saved. And we can start a new chat, and we can say hi again. And this way we can start seeing that these, you can see the link to that first thread there, and we'll start collecting these chat threads inside of this single note. So this note essentially becomes a bookmarking tool for our relevant conversations with ChatGPT. You can see that inside the code block, it's gaining the URL and a data view compatible inline variable so that if you use data view, you can actually list all of your active chats. And then when you're done with the chat, you can click mark done. And then if we look inside the code block again, we can see that that data view compatible variable now says done. So you can further separate your active chats from your completed chats. And here is where I would do something like copy all of these notes, and then we can say summarize the notes, and then paste all of that content, that 20,000 characters of content or context from those notes, to quickly get a summary from ChatGPT in a way where that chat thread is still saved in this note. And even when you mark it done, it's still there, so you can still go check out the done threads. And there's a refresh button, so as it finishes up, You can see the latest output, and that's pretty much the gist of it. I spend a lot of time coming up with what needs to be done and clarifying what done looks like, and then placing that clarified specification or expected output, pasting that into ChatGPT. Especially O1 Pro takes a really long time to respond, often up to 10 minutes. So this allows me to submit multiple things and then come back later. Ideally at nighttime, I'm submitting threads of things that are important to do. So then in the morning, on fresh eyes, I can start reviewing and seeing, where do I have to take these different tasks and project outcomes, based on what the AI has given back to me, like with a clear head for reviewing that often complex output. I'm able to, basically just move faster. And that's what these smart plugins are all about. It's about moving faster. So this workflow for moving fast has been critical for me. Being able to quickly get lots of context. I have thousands of notes. I link things together. I use smart connections to add links. And being able to quickly provide ChatGPT with that context and the direction and desired outcomes that I'm seeking is very useful. Okay, so that is smart context and smart ChatGPT. Let's see if we have anything else in this smart plugins plugin. So we have the other platforms. They're essentially the same as the smart ChatGPT plugin, but you can use Gemini, DeepSeek, Claude, Grok. We have the Smart Sources plugin, which is actually going to be the Smart Environment Early plugin soon, but right now we're still calling it Smart Sources. And the reason is it allows you to import additional sources into your Obsidian Smart environment. What does that mean? So let's go set up the Smart Sources plugin. We need to add our API key. Once again, you'll see the reason for this is because we're going to use GPT 4.1, and we can use the mini model. We're going to use that model to actually import images into our connections results. So the embedding model that's local only works with text. So what we're doing here is we're going to, let's reload sources now that we added our API key. And what we're doing is we're using AI vision to create text representations of our images. And that allows us to embed those text representations and show them inside of the Smart Connections pane. Now, because we installed a few different plugins, let's just quick restart Obsidian because, sometimes, there's some hiccups when you're adding new plugins and the smart environment keeps reloading. So now that it's reloaded, we can open up the Smart Connections pane. And on the left here, we can go to a screenshot. And we can see in our connections pane, now we have links to other screenshots. And below each image is the text that AI produced that matched with this current image's text in order to produce these recommended similar pieces of content. Or even when it's the same image here, what about the image is relevant to the overall image? Same here. It's like this is a section of the overall text that was produced for this image. So what about this image is relevant? And that's what it shows you here in the connections pane. Okay, let's see what else we have in the Smart Plugins plugin. Okay, this is a great example. So the Smart Plugins plugin is a somewhat exclusive list of plugins for supporters of my work. And the reason for that is because a lot of these are very useful tools that I'm developing for myself to help me be able to produce products and for me to be able to, provide new tools like what we're seeing, like long into the future. So by keeping a small group of supporters as the first people to touch these new products, it enables me to move faster. Number one, because the supporters tend to be technical people, people that are comfortable getting their hands dirty with Obsidian, and they're experienced in the plugin ecosystem, and they already have systems. So when things aren't working, it's not trying to figure out the entire Obsidian ecosystem, and these experimental plugins are just adding to that challenge. But instead, these are people that are trying to take their Obsidian system to the next level, and by trying out these experimental plugins, it might help them figure out what they need to succeed. So this Smart File Navigator plugin, I just recently made this, and I shipped it out very soon after to the smart supporters that support the Smart Connections plugin. And what that allows me to do is go into the settings and create rules for how things should appear inside of the file explorer. So I can say for all folders, if a property key is high impact, let's go high impact. If it just has that, then let's bold that note. So then over here, let's try this out. Inbox 0. Okay, so we can say high impact and apply rules. And now we see inbox 0 is now bolded. Maybe we want to dim everything that is not high impact. So we say not exists, and we can dim that and go back out here, apply rules again, and now all of these notes that are not labeled high impact are now dimmed. So this is something I use data view a lot to help me aggregate the notes and the projects I'm working on. But this, I also use the file explorer a lot. So this really helps me gain my focus on what matters most. And it's a great example of how having a well-curated small group of supporters really helps me produce more. And if this is a plugin that a lot of people in the supporter group end up liking, it will be made open source along with the other plugins that they help me test and refine. So, I just want to say I'm grateful to all the supporters that have made Smart Connections and all of its evolutions beyond Smart Connections possible. And, I'm really looking forward to what the future holds. I think that this is an opportunity for me to create tools that help me create tools that help you by sharing those tools. And I can't think of a better feedback loop for myself personally. Somebody that just loves building, loves personal productivity, loves imagining what the future might look like and doing what I can to realize it. And I think that this is, personally the way for me to realize my visions for the future. So thank you for listening. I hope you got a good idea of how easy it is to get started with Smart Connections, how the Smart Connect app can enable you to do so much more with ChatGPT while keeping your data local so that you own that data and it's not sitting out on somebody's server waiting to be scraped or stolen. And I hope you see that there's a lot more in development in the form of these experimental smart plugins and early release plugins that supporters can access right now. So once again, thank you for watching. Hope to talk to you soon.